David Smith here with one more flipped classroom math video lesson. 3 tips before we start. First, you can adjust the playback speed faster or slower as you desire. Second, you can pause the video at any point to catch up with notes or write down some questions. Third, you can turn on the captions and read my words on the screen. Okay, so now we're going to stay with our presentation of data section, but we're going to move on and talk about cumulative frequency tables and curves. And cumulative frequency is just basically you're summing up the frequencies up to a certain value. Okay, so that's my definition there. Probably doesn't click super well yet, but let's do one and then you'll see how it works. So cumulative frequency table looks just like a frequency table, but it has another column, and that's the cumulative frequency column. So I started here with some data, like we always do, and here we got castle visitors. So, and it's a frequency table. So to our castle, we have between 0 and 50 visitors, 16 different days. Okay? And then we have between 50 and 100 visitors, 38 different days, and so on. So these are the frequencies of the classes, and the classes are defined as number of visitors to the castle on that day. Okay, so cumulative frequency is just adding up all these individual frequencies as you go. So for our first class, the cumulative frequency is just 16 because that's as much as we have. But then for the next frequency, we're going to add the 16 and the 38, and that's going to give us 4854. Now squeeze that in there. Okay, and then the next frequency is just going to be the total from the previous row, from the previous 2 classes, adding that one. So this is going to be 54 plus 50, which is 104. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and pause the video and finish out your table. Go ahead and finish out the cumulative frequencies. All right, so go ahead and check your work. I just did my cumulative frequency there, and I had 200. And that's true, we do have 200 days in our data set. So if you didn't get 200, check your addition there and make sure that you got that right. All right, so now let's make a cumulative frequency curve of our data from our table. So first off, make sure you scale your axes correctly. In these diagrams, we're going to graph the number of visitors. This is our data on the x-axis. So that's these classes are going to be graphed on here. And notice how I've scaled my axis so that it goes up to 400 because that's the top end of our biggest or of our last class. So all that data is going to be graphed between 0 and 400. And then on my vertical axis, I've graphed my cumulative frequency. So our biggest frequency is 200. We have a bunch of days where we had 200 visitors to the castle. So there are my axes scaled correctly, all ready for the graph. Okay, so now we need to figure out our points, the points that go on our graph. And so the first thing you just need to remember is your first point is going to be 0, 0. Okay? Now, the second point is going to take this high member, the higher member of your first class, and the cumulative frequency for that class. So our second point is going to be 50, 16. So that means we had 0 to 50 visitors on 16 different days. Okay, so that's basically just our first class. But now we're going to start taking our cumulative frequency. So the next data point is 100. So that's the high member of this frequency, or of this class. And then now we take the cumulative frequency for that, and we do 54. And so we keep going in this same way. We're going to now take the highest value of the next class, which is this one here, which is 150, and then we go to our cumulative frequency of 104. So go ahead and pause the video and finish creating your points. All right, to summarize that point, your first one is 0, 0. Then you take the high end of each class along with its cumulative frequency, and that generates all of your points. So check your work, make sure you got these points. If you didn't, take a look at it, figure out what went wrong. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make a graph with this, okay? So actually, you probably have the skills right now just to graph all these data points on your cumulative frequency diagram. So go ahead and pause the video and do that. All right, let's see how you did. I carefully plotted my points on my graph. By the way, if you've got graph paper, bust it out for these problems because it's going to be super, super helpful. I'm just estimating where my points go. I think I did an okay job, but with graph paper, you can be fairly precise. Works pretty good. Okay, so here's my cumulative frequency diagram. I connected up my lines and I've got my cumulative frequency. So now I can read off of this graph, and in our next lesson, we're going to do a bunch of different things using these graphs. We're going to be able to tell our median, our quartiles. We're going to be able to calculate our interquartile range. We're going to be able to analyze whether or not we have outliers. There's going to be a bunch of stuff we can do based on this cumulative frequency graph. All right, let's do a second one. A little bit less data, won't take you quite so long. We're going to do the same process that we did with the last one. So if you want to pause the video right now and use your notes and work this data to get your cumulative frequencies, figure out what your plot's going to look like, figure out your data points that go on the plot, and then make your plot. So if you want to do it all soup to nuts, as we say, pause the video right now and test yourself. I'm going to go through the steps of that one at a time. So first step, fill in your cumulative frequency. So pause the video and do that. All right, there are our cumulative frequencies. Now I want you to pause the video. First, check your work, make sure you got them. And if you have an error, find that. Now I want you to pause the video and create your axes for your cumulative frequency curve. Okay, so here we go. I've got my laps in here. So these are my classes of laps, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and so on and so forth. So here are my classes, laps. And then here is my cumulative frequency. So we're going to do cumulative frequency right there. Now I want you to figure out your data points. And I'm going to make mine right there. So go ahead and look at your table, figure out what your data points are going to be, and then come back. Okay, so here we go. Our 0, 0. And then we have 10, 2. That means we have total frequency at class 10 is just 2. And then when we get to the class that ends in 20, you have a total of 26. Just going right off my table. Check your work, make sure you got them. And if you're good to go, now I want you to pause the video and make your graph. So here we go. There is my cumulative frequency graph based on these data, based on that table, which is based on the actual data. Now that you've watched the video, take a minute to jot down some notes, some questions, or a quick summary of the lesson. You can also re-watch portions of the video that were a little bit challenging the first time. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.